For Adani Group stocks see large trades today. Adani Enterprises, Ports, as well as Transmission and Adani Green Collective see block deals worth nearly 16,000 crore rupees. The street meanwhile awaits the Supreme Court order on petition seeking a probe into allegations against the Adani in the Hindenburg report.
Rail Vikas, BHEL and Titagarh Wagons, all of them gain after the companies emerge as L1 and L2 bidders for the 200 Vande Bharat train set order.
Sunteck Realty surges close to 4% after signing an exclusive lease deal with Upgrad for its premium commercial project in Mumbai. The project is likely to generate a total revenue of 2,000 crore rupees over the 29-year lease tenure.
Electra Green Tech continues to gain on positive news flow, up 54% from its 52-week lows. They receive a nod for e-tippers and says that this is the first order for 20 e-tippers is in the final stage of discussions.
Hello and welcome. You're watching us here on Chartbusters. I'm Mangalam Malu. With me, Nigel D'Souza. You have flashes at the bottom of your screen. The Adani Hindenburg case hearing in the Supreme Court to begin shortly. Up until then, we are keeping an eye on the group stocks. There were a couple of large trades as well. But for the market itself, a little soft. The question is what happens in the second half of trade. We have the weekly options expiry playing out as well. So to that extent, it will be important to see whether we go ahead and cross that 200-day moving average on the Nifty, or rather take that as a support, and the 20-day moving average on the Nifty Bank, which is about 300 points from yesterday's close. Hi, Nigel.
Well, hi, Mangalam. It's not such a bad start actually to the trading session because we're down 60 points odd, but just take a look at the mid-cap index. That's mildly in the green. And the breadth of the market as well is in favor of the number of stocks that are advancing. So there are a couple of positives out here. And on a closing basis, if the Nifty can defend that 200 DMA, which is at around 17,390 odd, well, the bulls will feel they're still in the game. But let's get in Sachit Anand Uthekar, who joins us on the show. Hi, Sachi. Well, it seems there is some buying at lower levels. We went to around 17,350, and from there we have bounced a little bit. Would you be a buyer at current levels, or do you believe we're going to go ahead and test the lows that we saw earlier this week?
Good morning, Nigel. Nigel, clearly, I think the support at around 17,350 may not be violated. In fact, if you look at the Nifty data, the range is, been exhibited within 17,350 on the lower side and 17,450 on the higher side. We're expecting the expiry to shape up again above 17,400 itself. When it comes to Bank Nifty, I don't think we may slip below the previous day swing low, which was around 40,340. So probably the oscillating range could be somewhere close to 40,500 to 40,900. Even here, we are expecting a recovery, and probably the expiry could shape up somewhere close to 40,650, 700 itself. So both the indices, I think we have already seen some sharp cuts, but I think if you look at the equation here, it looks rather stable than further weakening. So probably in the second half, we may see a good strong recovery coming back in the market. When it comes to Nifty, I think the pressure is clearly evident from the IT stocks. But when it comes to Bank Nifty, I think certain long positions can be deployed here. So from a trading perspective, the stop loss should be kept somewhere close to 40,360 on the lower side, and some long positions can be built in here. Overall, we are expecting a move towards 40,900 eventually during the day.
All right. Expect a recovery in the second half, and 40,900 on the Nifty Bank is what you're expecting in terms of a move, and that would also coincide with the 20-day moving average there. Sachi, individual stocks, how would you play that? Do you have any thoughts particularly on the Adani Group?
Good morning, Mangalam. Mangalam, I think it's better to avoid that particular group. There are a lot of other pockets which are still relatively stable when it comes to trading. We are focused on certain pockets wherein there was inherent weakness and some sideways consolidation was evident in last couple of trading sessions. So right now we are looking at stocks which are showing or displaying relative strength in the last few trading sessions and which are positioned for a strong recovery. So the first stock that has hit our radar is Hero MotoCorp. If you look at the entire data set, we saw a very sharp decline of almost 400 points from the recent swing highs. If you look at last two trading sessions, we saw a gravestone doji kind of formation right at the bottom. That particular bottom is still not been violated. And if you look at the OI additions today, which have been on the positive side, it has managed to sustain above its 5-day exponential moving average, and good positive crossover on the RSI is compelling us to build some long positions here. So the stop loss should be placed at around 24.20 on the lower side. We're expecting a good strong pullback towards 25.60 eventually. The second stock on our radar, which we have recommended to our clients, is Indigo. Now, again, here we have seen a severe decline, but for the past 4 trading sessions, the stock has displayed a good relative strength. It has been oscillating and consolidating within a narrow range. We are expecting that this particular range to widen up and probably give a breakout on the higher side. The short covering move can take this particular counter towards 1960. So long positions are recommended here with a stop loss at 1855.
Okay, all right, Sachi, thanks so much for stopping by and giving us your call on the index as well as the individual stocks. Well, for the time being, let's shift focus to our special segment where we get you a few ideas for profit from Money Control Pro. Madhu Chanda Dey of moneycontrol.com joins us to talk about a stock that she's tracking closely. Madhu?
Mass Financial, the small niche NBFC operating predominantly in the western states of India and catering to economic activity financing of small businesses and individuals, has underperformed in the past 4 months with a decline of over 10.5% as against 4% fall in the Nifty. This is despite a consistently improved performance post-pandemic and one of the best asset quality pictures during COVID. Mars has a calibrated approach to asset growth, which is a hybrid model of own network and NBFC partnership. It caters to the financing needs of borrowers from mostly the unorganized sector, therefore commands a superior interest margin and return ratios. However, despite operating in this kind of a market, Mars has maintained its pristine asset quality. It has adequate capital and funding sources, and all these make Mars Financial a very interesting business to look at despite the intense competition from larger players. The current valuation, which is at a discount to its IPO valuation, certainly presents a long-term opportunity.
All right, Madhu, thanks a lot for that. Meanwhile, there is some clarification coming in from the Adani Group at the bottom of your screen. This is Adani Green. This is with regards to some of their debt. So we'll keep flashing those news items from the group even as the Supreme Court bench assembles for the same. Take a short break, come back. On the other side, we have the management of Atul Auto as well as Mitul Shah, who's the head of research at Reliance Securities, joining in to discuss auto sales so far. Well, let's get chatting about the auto space. Our first guest on the show, in fact, we have two of them for you. We have Atul Auto. The company reported a strong jump in auto sales for the month of February, of course, on a low base as well. It was up around 55.5%. We have Jitendra Adya, who's the president of finance of the company. Also with us is auto analyst Mitul Shah, who's the head of research at Reliance Securities, joining in. Both of them, of course, will give their thoughts on the monthly sales numbers so far. So Atul and Mitul, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining in. We'll go to Mr. Adya first. Your Feb sales have been almost, 2,125 units, 2125 units. Year to date, your sales are closer to 22,400 units. Pre-COVID, you would do 50,000 units. So now that things are, normalizing, we're looking at FY24. Can you give us a couple of numbers? What are you likely to end this year with in terms of sales units? And the next year, what are you targeting?
Very good morning to you, and thank you for inviting me on this show. First, about the numbers, what we delivered till February in the current fiscal. I expect that we will be able to keep on delivering, positive numbers month over month, this month onwards. We see at the end of the tunnel, and we expect that there will be a recovery, and we will be able to definitely go back to pre-COVID level very soon. Difficult to tell you how and when, but mostly, the first quarter is always remain lean. Let us see. We expect that some good recovery will start coming up from April, but steep numbers will be from July, August onwards.
All right. Hi, Ms. Adya. Thanks so much for joining in. But try to give us at least an outlook for FY24. How is demand on the ground? So you're on to three-wheelers, so you get a sense about rural India as well. Is demand strong enough as we speak? And can you end FY24 closer to around that 50,000 odd mark that Mangalam was just talking about?
We expect that rural demand may take some more time. There is a spark, more to thought about it, but I would like to definitely wait for some more time and then give our observations about it. Meanwhile, yes, rural India is mostly on diesel. Diesel overall, is passing through lot many changes under Amazon norms, as well as we expect that OBD2 is likely to be there from April onwards. So we would like to wait, and then definitely we will able to reveal the numbers. Meanwhile, yes, semi-urban and urban part, we saw the strong recovery with electric vehicles as well as alternate fuel three-wheelers.
All right.
From a Toyota point of view, we expect that definitely we will be able to improve upon our export.
Give us a number, sir. Give us a number, sir.
Numbers are difficult to tell you as of now.
All right. Just hang in there, sir. Mithul as well as Mr. Adya, we'll just come back to you in a moment. We are getting some news from the Supreme Court, and this is with regards to the Adani Hindenburg case. The Supreme Court order says that SEBI has stated that it is already inquiring into the Hindenburg report allegations to identify potential violations, and the Supreme Court itself has formed a committee which comprises of O.P. Bhatt, there's K.V. Kamath, Nandan Nilekani, and Somasekhar Sundaresan, who of course is headed Justice Sapre as well as the retired judge of Supreme Court. SEBI investigation agencies shall support the expert panel. So these are the three lines that we have right now with regards to the Supreme Court order. We'll try and get more details on this, some reactions, and also a word from our correspondent Ashmit on the same. So that's what's transpiring in the Supreme Court right now. The street is awaiting more details on this too. But let's move back to our conversation. Mithul, Mr. Adya was speaking about some spark in rural demand. From the numbers that have come by so far, we've seen a jump in two-wheeler sales. Do you think that's sustainable? And of the all the numbers that have come, which have been the ones that you've liked the most?
Two-wheeler numbers in domestic market improvement we have seen on YOY as well as month-on-month basis. That is primarily due to very low base. Though recovery is much slower, there is an improvement, but compared to pre-COVID level, it is much lower. So what Mr. Adya is saying is right, that rural is still not recovering, and whatever improvement for two-wheeler we have seen is on a lower base. So we may see similar growth in coming months, but that is primarily because of the low base. However, it should be much higher growth the way it is visible in case of MHCV. The CV segment seems to be most promising right now. Truck segment growing in the range of 20-30% in last 2-3 months, and full year probably will end with more than 40% growth. Buses segment naturally with again low base is growing by more than 100%. So that segment should continue growing in a healthy double-digit numbers.
Okay, all right. Just hold on to that thought, Mithul. By the way, we have some news coming. The Supreme Court has directed SEBI to probe Adani. They say that SEBI must probe of all these violations of the Securities Act. They're also saying that SEBI must probe whether there's been any failure to disclose related party transactions. So some of those flashes should come up for you, but that's the status as of now. In fact, Ashmit will join us, and he'll give us a quick update in terms of what he has picked up on this particular case. So for the timing, the Adani Group stocks, they were higher. They've come off a little bit from the top. The Supreme Court has directed SEBI to probe Adani Group further from here on. That's the headline that's coming in there. And Ashmit will give us further details on that front. We'll just try to squeeze in a couple of questions to our guests who are still with us. Mithul, the tractor space has been looking up for the last few years. So before we let you all go, just wanted to understand, what's the outlook from here on? We have this problem about the monsoons. History is against us because El Nino, there's various talks about that. And also, are tractor sales peaking out? Your view?
The tractor since last few months is giving consistently positive surprise in terms of 20, 25, 30% kind of a growth. So on the one hand, we are saying about rural is slowing down, agri is also facing some problem, but still numbers are growing. So which clearly indicates that there is non-agri usage of tractor is increasing and commercial part of the tractor segment is driving the growth, which is also visible in the MHCV segment, which is also picking up because of the better infra activities. So that is helping.
Yeah.
But of course, this El Nino and monsoon situation is very important. So going forward, April onwards, we need to monitor this monsoon prediction as well as El Nino. Otherwise, it may not be turn out to be very great year for tractor industry in FY24.
Mitul, thank you so much for joining in and giving us that perspective. Before we connect with Ashmit's just about to join us. We have about 30 seconds, Mr. Adya. Until then, if you could give us, a couple of details about your company itself. You had capacity of what? 1,20,000 units, including both Rajkot and Ahmedabad. What are you targeting in terms of exports next year?
See, now Atulato is ready with a complete range of product. We have product on 0.5 as well as 0.35 ton platform. We have multi-fuel choice, that is diesel, alternate fuel, electric. In electric, we got L3, L5. We have capacity in place, 120,000 units, both plants put together, and having variety of variants and applications available in product range. Obviously, the entire export is catered by gasoline, that is petrol three-wheelers. We have seeded few numbers in the current fiscal, and we expect that with a positive response from all across, we will be able to definitely deliver a better volume for export in a time to come.
All right, Mr. Adya, paucity of time, so and obviously influx of a fair amount of news flow that is coming in. So we'll, end this conversation here. Mitul and Mr. Adya, thank you so much for joining us, giving us all those details. But the shift focus definitely shifts to what's taking place in the Supreme Court right now. The Supreme Court has formed a committee headed by Justice Sapre, who's a retired judge of the Supreme Court. And just looking at these stocks, there hasn't been any big move on these stocks basis these lines that have come by. In fact, all the stocks had seen a bit of a recovery after a bunch of large trades that took place in the morning. Some commentary coming in from Adani Green as well with regards to his debt. But, just basis these lines, we haven't seen a significant move on either side.
No, actually, the stocks have come off Mangalam from the top. If you look at Adani, Enterprises was up 4%. I think now it's up only around 1%. Or we'll have to wait to understand from Ashmit what is the latest on that front. But the brief lines are flashing for you on the screen. Pull up the intraday charts actually of all these stocks, whether it's Ambuja Cements, whether it's Adani Ports, Adani Enterprises, all of them. Let's get the intraday charts up for you. They have all come off the top. So we're waiting for further details. But these stocks had ran up in anticipation of that verdict. For the time being, they've come off a little bit. Adani Enterprises, I think that's the big one in there. That was up close to around 4% and saw a big move in the run-up. Now that's up only around 1% or thereabouts. I think what we'll do is, I think do we have Ashmit with us? All right. I think we'll just slip into a snappy break. Come back, we'll get to the latest on this front. Welcome back. We have all those flashes that are up for you on the screen on the Hindenburg Adani case. And Ashmit, who's been tracking that very closely, he's joining us to give us the latest on the verdict. Ashmit?
Well, this was the much-awaited order. The Supreme Court had reserved its judgment, and this was much awaited in terms of clarity on what perhaps the regulatory approach needs to be going forward. And what's interesting is that there are two very important takeaways. The first is the expert panel that has been constituted. It's a high-powered committee that has been formed. It has 5 members. It is headed by a retired judge. Let me take you through the composition of this expert panel. The expert panel includes former banker and SBI chief O.P. Bhatt, K.V. Kamath, Nanda Nilekani, lawyer Somsekhar Sundaresan, and it will be headed by Justice Sapre, a retired judge of the Apex Court. This is as far as the expert panel is concerned. It will be looking at essentially the extant norms on the issue of investor protection. The Supreme Court had made a note of how the fall in Adani prices had led to a vast amount of investor wealth erosion. So this is something that, in fact, the expert committee will be charged with. But importantly, that is not the only aspect that the Apex Court, in fact, is looking into. What's important is that the Supreme Court, by way of a very explicit order, has directed that the market regulator, SEBI, needs to, in fact, probe some very pointed questions that were raised in the Hindenburg report. Now, this is the second important takeaway. There are 4 key issues that have been highlighted. The 4 key issues include, number 1, minimum public shareholding norms. Number 2, Securities Act violations. Number 3, related party transactions. And number 4, manipulation of share prices. There's a very clear direction by the Apex Court for SEBI, the market regulator, to probe these allegations and to submit its report within 2 months' time to this very expert panel. So clearly, a 2-part order by the Apex Court, important in the Adani case.
Take that point, Ashmit, but just stay on with us because we are also joined by HP Ranina, who's the senior advocate at the Supreme Court. Joining us on the phone line, we have with us Abhishek Rastogi as well, who's the founder of the Rastogi Chambers, joining us, and Sanjay Dutt to give us, the market reaction on the same. Mr. Ranina, first, your thoughts on this 2-part judgment that has come in from the Supreme Court, the direction that they've provided, one, forming an expert panel, and secondly, directing the SEBI to look into the 4 charges which have been made by the Hindenburg report?
I think this is a very landmark judgment of the Supreme Court, because the impact of this judgment will be felt in many other cases in the future as well. So the first point is SEBI has been asked to find out whether there is any violation of the Security Contract Act or any other provision of the law. That is very important. Second is manipulation of prices. This is done to protect the interest of small investors and the public at large. So whether there's manipulation, this is something which is a very important point which the SEBI will have to go through. And maybe they may take they will take a little more time than what the Supreme Court has given them, but possibly they will have to put head to it and make sure that this manipulation angle is thoroughly probed. And then, of course, it will all go to the panel of experts which have been formed. Again, it's a very good step taken by the Supreme Court that it will be evaluated. Whatever findings of SEBI will be evaluated by an independent panel of people, and then the final report will come. So I think it's a wonderful judgment, and the Supreme Court should be commended for this positive step that they have taken.
Indeed, Mr. Ranina, I request you to hold on to that thought. And in fact, Ashmit has further queries for you as well. But for the time being, let's hop across to Mr. Sanjay Dutt, Director of Quantum Securities, who joins us. Hi, Mr. Dutt. Good morning. Could you tell us your first reaction to this particular verdict that's just come out, and how do you approach the stocks in the interim?
Nigel, thank you for having me on the show. I think the outcome is very positive of the deliberation the Supreme Court did, the arguments that have happened and what they finally pronounced. And I don't have much to add that as compared to what Senior Advocate Ranina has already said. But I just had one small bit to add here is that I'm glad something like this has come and we've got some decisive course of action, because we need to not take this off the public discourse, the political mudslinging, what debates we've had in the parliament, what we're having in social media. There's a lot of mind space and a lot of energies being wasted and misinformation that's being spread around. So this probably should now lessen that or put an end to it. I don't know. But I think a good part is that government can now, make it very clear to people that there is a Supreme Court appointed committee is looking into all these things. And of course, we've got eminent members like Mr. K.V. Kamath, and I don't think you could have a better committee as what is Supreme Court said. And third most important is SEBI in any case is doing everything. So I think SEBI is taking care of everything. So I think everything is positive from whatever has happened today.
Right. It's a fair point that you've made out there, Sanjay. We also have with us Mr. Abhishek Rastogi. He is, of course, the founder of Rastogi Chambers, legal luminary there too. Abhishek, your thoughts? I mean, what do you think is the next step from the Adani Group standpoint? What happens? What is the legal way forward for this?
So I think, first of all, we must, it's a commendable job. And today we are proud that we have strong judicial system. And when I say that, it has a lot of meaning, because today I think everybody's focus is on protection of investors. And when we have such a judicial system which wants to show transparency, mind you that there was a sealed cover which was given by the center to recommend names. but I think that was completely denied by the Chief Justice, and that shows that the Apex Court wants to very clearly show that the system must be transparent. And today we are proud, to learn that the appointment of this high-powered committee brings onto the table complete diversity. So I think if we look about the two broad fundamental aspects, the transparency and the diversity of this high-powered committee, I think it is a blessing for the investors, because at the end of the day, the investors will get confidence from the entire system. And when we talk about the violations and guidelines to be framed by SEBI and with respect to manipulation of share prices, today I think the investors will get a lot of confidence from this Supreme Court verdict, and I think which will be in the long run very encouraging. So I think as far as the next steps are concerned and the legal framework is concerned, this high-powered committee will get into the details of various aspects. We would not want to comment on those at this stage, but because there is a lot of diversity in this committee which is being formed, they would look at from 360-degree perspective. And I think that will boost industry confidence, that will boost even the investor confidence. And I think as far as Adani is concerned and as far as the fair play is concerned, I think today there is a fair play for all stakeholders, especially from the perspective of the investors. And I think that's why this decision is very, very key.
All right, Mr. Rastogi, thanks a lot for joining in with your initial thoughts on the same. In fact, on that note, we'll thank Mr. Ranina, Mr. Rastogi, as well as Mr. Dutt for joining in as well with their quick take, unequivocal about the fact that investor protection should be prime. So in case you've just joined in, the Supreme Court in its verdict so far with regards to the Adani Hindenburg case has made two observations. The first, it's constituted an expert committee of Mr. O.P. Bhatt, K.V. Kamath, Nandan Nilekani, Somsekhar Sundaran, and this committee would be headed by Justice Sapre, who is the retired judge of the Supreme Court. The SEBI and investigation agencies will support the expert panel. Apart from that, they've also gone ahead and directed the SEBI into looking at 4 possible violations made by the Adani Group or alleged by Hindenburg itself. On that note, we will wrap up on this edition of Chartbusters. You stay tuned. Coverage will continue.